Hello, my name is Tylluan. I'm a solitary pagan witch, I'm an author and the founder of the Wolf and Howl Press. Today I'm going to chat a little bit about how fashions change in witchcraft. And when I say fashions, I don't mean clothing. You can wear what you want or nothing at all if that's what you want to do. But what I'm talking about is the way we regard it and the way that we talk about it and the way that people who research it think about it too, because we are affected by that. And there is a tendency as ordinary people to feel that we must be guided by what the academics, what the teachers tell us. And it is true up to a point. We should listen to them because they've obviously studied it. But I think we should also listen to our inner self too. If we feel something is innately wrong, we should go off and see if we can research it and find something different. And even if we can't, if we still feel it's wrong, or it makes us uncomfortable, or we're sitting there thinking to ourselves, oh, I don't know, there's something not quite right about this, I can't quite go along with it, then, don't be afraid to follow your own feelings. It might be that your path is going to take you in a slightly different way, a different sort of trajectory, or you may be going off to discover something totally different. Who knows? But there was a period back in the 19th century in particular when people began collecting stories, folklore. They began collecting it, and I think they began to realise that a lot was going to be lost. And they felt it would be a great pity. Folk songs would be lost, folk dances would be lost, folklore would be lost, and all these old traditions. But you have to remember that if you go out with a notebook and pen and you go to someone's home or to the pub or wherever and you start talking to them about what they believe, what's happened, the chances of you getting a straight story are not actually that high. You have to remember as well, sorry I'm scratching my nose like this, I've been sneezing this morning. You have to remember as well, there was a big social gulf between they were going out to interview what they saw as the poor people, the working class, the labourers, the artisans, and they were usually strongly middle class. And so they would have spoken differently, their whole attitude would have been different, and particularly in the 19th century there would have been this element of condescension. You still get it sometimes. So people were not necessarily going to tell exactly the truth. Also, there was a tendency to make up folklore. There was a tendency to say, well, this is, how can I give you a good example of it? Give you one from my own family. There was a hill near where I used to live when I was a child called the Tumble. And it's a common name. It probably comes from tump, meaning a mound. It could come from all sorts of things, I don't know. But my family, that wasn't going to stop them. They called it the Tumble because that was where Dick Turpin fell off his horse. He tumbled off his horse, that's why it was the Tumble. Well, it wasn't. Dick Turpin never went anywhere near where I lived. He really didn't. So it's complete and utter nonsense. But they stuck to it. And this sort of thing did happen in folklore. So although all these things were collected at one point and are tremendously interesting to read, you have to bear in mind that some of them may not be entirely accurate. Some of the people they spoke to could well have been like my family and just made it up as they went along. That can happen. Then there was James Fraser, who collected this terrific work, the Golden Bough, and he began talking about a particular type of folklore, and he tried to link in all the world folklore to his theory. And again, tremendously interesting reading, but you have to bear in mind he was quite selective with what he chose to support his theory, but all researchers are. They tend to present the things that support their theory and not the things that disagree with them, usually. So then his theories fell by the wayside, and then there was Margaret Murray, and at the moment it's very, very fashionable to completely laugh at Margaret Murray, forgetting that she was actually an archaeologist. She wasn't some, what can you call her? She wasn't just a middle-class woman who went round with a notebook and pen. She had her theories. She worked in a university. She lectured. She was quite well thought of in her field. She involved herself in lots of things. So she presented her evidence in a way that supported her theory that witchcraft was the old religion and it went straight back into pagan times, and that the witch trials reveal evidence about what witches did and practiced. And now, of course, all that's gone by the wayside. She lived to be a very, very old woman. She was over 100 when she died. And her theories were quite long-lived as well. But come about the late 70s, people were starting to turn on them and things changed. So when I'm talking like this, what I'm trying to say is an awful lot of what is being taught now is going to be turned on its head in 10, 20 years. Bear it in mind. We have to practice what means something to us. We have to explore all the different options. It's no good feeling all of a sudden, oh, good grief, so-and-so says I've been doing it all wrong. Well, yes, so-and-so might well say that, but if it felt right to you, you have to examine why it felt right. Why did you feel at the time that what you were doing was right? Was it just because you read it in a book somewhere? Or was it because it spoke to you on some level? It spoke to your soul, it spoke to your spirit. So part of witchcraft, and I often get criticised for this, I'm trying not to sneeze. Oh, I'm so sorry. I often get criticised because I often suggest very simple ways of looking at things, but actually the simple ways of looking at things are often the best. We do very simple exercises which are doing some very deep work on our mental processes. So if it feels right to you, explore why it feels right. Especially if everyone else is saying, no, 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 this is wrong. Explore why it feels right. See what you can find. It's up to us as individuals to find a path that works for us. And I'm so sorry about all this snoring. I've only just really realised it's happening. I'm not sure who's doing it. I think it's Daisy. She's got her nose trapped under Homer's bottom and it's making it hard for her to breathe. So it's making this terrible noise like a motorbike. Anyway, that aside, spend time thinking about it. What do you believe? What does everybody else believe? What do you think? What does everybody else think? And can you square them? If you can, okay, there's no problem as far as you're concerned. But if you can't, and I often can't, then you have to think about why you can't and what you can do about it. Are you going to change how you feel just because somebody else says? Or are you going to work your own way towards a deeper truth, if you like? Or just see whether you are right all along? Because that's what witchcraft is about. It is a personal path. And it's up to us to follow it. Nobody else can just sit there and write, not even me. You can't just sit there and write something and say, this is how it's got to be done. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to try and explore it for yourself. Anyway, I've gone on long enough. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.